I always thought gas stations were safe, at least the brightly lit ones on the highway, the ones with security cameras and a steady stream of travelers passing through. But this place, a lonely 24-hour station on a barely used road, this place felt like an invitation for something bad to happen. I had taken the night shift for extra cash, figuring it would be quiet. I was right, but not in the way I had hoped. By midnight, the only company I had was the hum of the coolers and the occasional flicker of the fluorescent lights. Outside, the gas pumps sat empty, bathed in the eerie glow of the station's flickering sign. A few truckers had stopped in earlier, grabbing coffee and stretching their legs before disappearing back onto the highway. But for the past hour, it had been dead silent. No cars, no headlights, just me, and the creeping feeling that I wasn't alone. I told myself it was paranoia. Long shifts did that to you. But then I saw it. At the far end of the lot, just beyond the reach of the streetlights, something moved. A shadow, tall and thin, just standing there, watching. I squinted through the smudged glass of the storefront, trying to make out details, but whoever it was stayed just out of reach. I grabbed the store phone, pretending to check something on the screen while keeping an eye on the figure. I wasn't about to step outside and ask if they needed help. Not at this hour. I waited. Maybe they were waiting too. Then, slow as anything, they stepped backward, melting into the darkness. I let out a breath I didn't realize I was holding. Maybe it was just some drifter, some lost traveler who changed their mind. That was a reasonable explanation. Still, I found myself glancing at the security monitor, cycling through the cameras. Front lot, empty. Side alley, empty. Back lot. Wait, the back lot camera had a blind spot. The dumpster blocked part of the view, but just beyond it, I swore I saw movement. A sliver of fabric, a shifting shadow. My stomach tightened. I needed to lock the back door. I grabbed my keys and moved toward the storeroom, but as I reached the door, something banged against it. A sharp, deliberate knock. I froze. 3 more knocks followed, evenly spaced. Not the frantic pounding of someone in trouble, just knocking. I swallowed hard. "We're closed!" I called, even though we weren't. Silence. Then the handle twisted. I bolted for the front, my heart hammered as I grabbed the phone, ready to dial 911. But before I could, the automatic doors slid open. A man stepped inside. He was tall and wiry, wearing an old hoodie and jeans that looked a decade past their prime. His face was long and hollow. Dark eyes staring at me like he already knew what I'd say before I said it. "Got any coffee?" he asked. My mouth was dry. Yeah, back there." He nodded, walking past the counter toward the coffee station. I forced myself to breathe, trying to act normal. Maybe I had overreacted. Maybe he had nothing to do with the knocking. But then, why were his shoes wet? It hadn't rained. The ground outside was bone dry. I glanced at the security monitor. The backlot feed was still up. The camera didn't show the door itself, but there, near the dumpster, a single wet footprint. My skin crawled. He had been back there. He had knocked. I heard the clatter of the coffee pot as he set it down. Then that slow, deliberate voice, "Quiet night, huh?" I forced a tight smile. "Yeah, pretty slow." He didn't blink. "You been here long?" Every instinct screamed at me to lie. "Just covering for a friend. They'll be back soon." He tilted his head like he knew I was bluffing. "That's so?" A long pause. Then he reached into his hoodie pocket. I stiffened, fingers hovering near the panic button under the counter. But instead of a weapon, he pulled out a crumpled $5 bill. "Coffee and a pack of gum," he said. I rang him up. forcing my hands to stay steady. As I handed him his change, his fingers lingered against mine just a second too long. Then he smiled, thin and humorless. "See you around." He walked out. I watched him go, my breath shallow. The moment he stepped past the pumps, he veered left away from any parked cars. He disappeared into the trees. No vehicle, no sound, just gone. I locked the doors and called the cops. By the time they arrived, there was no trace of him. No footprints, no wet spots, nothing. "Probably just some drifter," the officer said. "Might have been messing with you." I nodded, pretending that explanation made sense, but later that night, just before my shift ended, I checked the cameras one last time. The feed glitched as I rewound to the moment he left. For a split second, less than a blink, the screen froze on a frame that made my stomach drop. There he was, standing outside, just beyond the glow of the streetlights, watching. But this time, he wasn't alone. I never liked working the closing shift at the bookstore. It wasn't haunted or anything, just eerily quiet after dark. The store sat in a dying strip mall, and once the other shops locked up, I was the only person left in the entire building. Or I was supposed to be. It started with a key. I was tidying up the register area when I noticed it sitting on the counter like it had been left just for me. It was old, brass, with a small tag attached by string. In faded marker, someone had written, "Basement." We didn't have a basement, at least I thought we didn't. I picked it up, frowning. Maybe it was from an old lock or something. Maybe. A soft thump echoed from the back room. I wasn't alone. I froze, straining to hear. The store was old and sometimes the walls creaked, but this was different. This was deliberate, like something heavy shifting just out of sight. I swallowed and grabbed my phone. No new messages, no alerts, just the bright, mocking glow of the screen reminding me that I was alone, or at least I was supposed to be. I forced a laugh. "It's just the heater kicking on," I muttered to myself. Saying it out loud made it feel real, like I could convince myself I believed it. But then, the heater didn't make the sound again, and neither did anything else. I looked back down at the key. The faded word, "basement," stared back at me. I didn't know why, but I suddenly felt the overwhelming need to get rid of it. Toss it in the trash, throw it outside, anything to make it someone else's problem. But before I could, my manager texted. "Manager, hey, can you do a quick check in storage before you leave? Had a shipment issue." My stomach twisted. The storage room, the same one the noise had come from. I typed back, "Everything okay?" 3 dots appeared, then disappeared, then finally, "Manager, just take a look." I hesitated. She never texted like that, always too busy to be vague. But I didn't want to be paranoid. Maybe I really did just need to check inventory. So I grabbed the key, shoved it in my pocket, and headed for the back. The storage room was colder than the rest of the store. Rows of shelves lined the walls, stacked with boxes of books and forgotten clearance items. I stepped inside, scanning the shelves, looking for anything out of place. Everything seemed normal. Then I noticed the floor. Near the far wall, the dust was disturbed, scuffed, like something heavy had been dragged across it. My breath caught. I followed the marks with my eyes and stopped at a small square seam in the floor. A door, a basement door. I had worked here for over a year. I had never seen this before. Slowly, I reached into my pocket and pulled out the key. My fingers felt numb as I knelt and fitted into the lock. It turned. The hatch groaned as I lifted it. A deep, damp smell hit me. Earthy, stale, like a place that hadn't been opened in years. My phone flashlight barely cut through the darkness below. A set of concrete steps disappeared into the void, then movement. I froze. My light caught something shifting at the bottom of the steps. A shape, tall, thin, and too still. Then in a low, rasping voice, it whispered, "You found the key!" I slammed the hatch shut and locked it. My hands shaking so hard I almost dropped the key. Then I ran. I grabbed my bag, sprinted to the front, and yanked the door open. The second I hit the parking lot, I dialed my manager's number. Straight to voicemail. The next morning, I quit. I didn't give a reason, just left my keys and walked out. But before I did, I checked the storage room one last time. The dust was undisturbed, the floor was solid, no hatch, no key, no sign it had ever been there. But as I turned to leave, I heard something, a faint rasping whisper from beneath my feet. "You found the key." 2 weeks later, I saw a news article about the bookstore. Local business closes due to mold contamination. I almost scrolled past it, until I read the details. According to the report, during renovations, workers had discovered a sealed basement beneath the store, filled with rotting books and toxic mold spores. Some of the older books dated back decades, untouched since the building had changed ownership. Exposure to the airborne toxins could cause hallucinations, auditory distortions, paranoia. My stomach twisted. I thought about the voice, the whisper from beneath the floor. Had I imagined it? Had I inhaled something without realizing it? I wanted to believe that. I really did. But one thing still didn't make sense. The article said there was no entrance to the basement from inside the store. No hatch, no lock, no key. So if it wasn't real, how did I open it? And more importantly, who whispered back? Night shifts at office buildings are supposed to be easy. No customers, no co-workers, just a quiet 8 hours of keeping an eye on things. That's why I took the job. I needed something low stress, just me, a few security cameras, and a radio for the occasional check-in. But there was one thing about the building I didn't like: the maintenance tunnels. Most people don't realize that big office towers have them. Narrow hallways running behind the walls, connecting utility rooms, electrical panels, and old storage spaces. I was never supposed to go down there. That was maintenance's job. But I always had the feeling those tunnels weren't empty. And one night, I found out I was right. It started with a call on the radio. "Security, this is maintenance. You near the 12th floor?" I pressed the button. "Yeah, I'm at the desk. What's up?" "Can you check something for us? Sensors are showing movement in the maintenance tunnels." My stomach tightened. "What kind of movement?" I asked. A pause. "Not sure. Could be a glitch. Just take a look." I grabbed my flashlight and made my way to the 12th floor. The hallway was silent, the kind of silence that felt too still, like the building itself was waiting. The entrance to the tunnels was at the end of the hall, a heavy, unlabeled door with a keypad lock. When I got there, I saw it was already slightly open. That wasn't right. I pulled out my radio. "Maintenance, the door's open. You send someone up here already?" Static. "Negative," a voice crackled back. "No one's there." I stared at the dark gap between the door and the frame. Something had been through here. Something was still inside. I pushed the door open and shined my light into the tunnel. The walls were raw concrete, pipes running along the ceiling. The passage stretched in both directions, disappearing into darkness. I stepped inside. The air was stale, damp. It smelled like dust and something else, something faintly metallic. That's when I heard it. A shuffling sound, slow, uneven, coming from deeper inside. I raised my radio again, keeping my voice low. "I think someone's in here." A crackle, then faintly, "No, you're alone." I froze. The voice wasn't maintenance. It wasn't anyone I recognized. I turned slowly, shining my light back the way I came. The tunnel was empty. Then the radio crackled again. "Turn off the light." My fingers tightened around the flashlight. My heartbeat pounded in my ears. Someone was watching me. I took a slow step backward, then another, and then from somewhere in the darkness, footsteps. Not running, not stumbling, just walking, deliberate, getting closer. I didn't wait. I turned and ran. I sprinted down the tunnel, my flashlight bouncing wildly off the walls. The door was ahead, still open, almost there. Slam! It shut. I crashed into it, scrambling for the handle. Locked. The footsteps behind me didn't stop. Then, just before they reached me, they stopped. Silence. Whoever was back there was standing just out of sight, watching. My breath came in short, panicked gasps. I hammered the door, yelling into my radio, "Maintenance! Security! Someone get me out of here!" Static. Then, "Which tunnel are you in?" I turned, pressing myself against the door. "12th floor. Someone's in here with me." A long pause. Then carefully, "That's not possible." "What do you mean it's not possible?" I hissed. Another pause. Then flatly, "We sealed the 12th floor tunnel 2 years ago." My blood ran cold. No, I'm in it right now. Look up!" Slowly I raised my flashlight, and then I saw it. The pipes, the ceiling, the walls, every surface was covered in deep, dirty scratches. Like something had been trying to get out. The radio crackled one last time. "Don't move! We're coming!" And somewhere in the darkness, the footsteps started again. I don't remember passing out. 1 second I was standing in the tunnel, heart hammering, lungs burning. The next, everything was black. When I woke up, I was in a hospital bed, oxygen mask on my face, IV in my arm. The first thing I saw was a doctor checking a clipboard. He noticed I was awake and gave me a sharp look. "You're lucky," he said. "Do you have any idea how close you were to suffocating?" I just stared at him. My brain felt like it was swimming through mud. A security manager, my boss, showed up an hour later. He told me the maintenance crew found me collapsed against the tunnel door, barely breathing. They had to force it open to drag me out. "That area should have been sealed off," he said, rubbing his temples. "The flooding caused a slow gas leak from an old underground line, probably been venting for years." It hit me all at once. The strange smell, the dizziness, the footsteps and voices, hallucinations caused by the gas. I wasn't hearing someone on the radio. I was talking to myself. The scratches, metal corrosion from years of exposure, the slow decay of a forgotten tunnel. The worst part, I almost convinced myself something was really down there, that I wasn't alone. But the only thing in that tunnel was me. I quit the job a week later. Not because of the gas, not because of the risk, but because sometimes when I'm alone in a quiet room, I still hear the radio crackle and a voice, my voice, whispering back,